Hello, friends. Today's chapter of the day is Job chapter 12. And Job chapter 12 is the first of a couple of chapters where Job is responding to his friends kind of laying it on him. And by laying it on him, I don't mean they were correct. They were kind of correct. And that's really what we see throughout Job is a lot of people with opinions that have some truth in them, but kind of get taken to improper extents. So what we see leading up to chapter 12 is his friends essentially say to Job, "Oh, boo-hoo, stop crying about this," and essentially asking him, "What did you do? What did you do to deserve this? And you should be thanking God because you apparently deserve even worse than you've gotten." That's the kind of comfort he's getting from his friends. And Job answers in two parts. He answers in chapter 12 first by confirming that this is the work of the Lord. So he doesn't want to say anything in his answer that makes it seem like, um, I'm not saying God did this, or not saying this is out of God's control. And that's an important piece for us to remember as we're dealing with suffering. We don't want to deal with suffering in a way that sort of excuses God from it, because even though it seems like we're doing the right thing by kind of taking God away from the bad things, what we're actually doing is we're chipping away at his sovereignty. It's like people who say, well, hell is the absence of God. He's not there, because we don't want you to think about, God being mean to people. Well, what you're doing by saying that is you're saying God isn't omnipresent. He's not everywhere if he's not in hell. He's not sovereign. He's not in charge of everything if he's not in charge of hell. And he's not just because he's not executing justice if someone else is doing it instead of him in hell. And it's the same thing that Job is correcting for here. He's saying, I am not saying that this isn't God. And that's essentially what Job's doing in chapter 12. He's, all this, he's saying, you're not telling me anything I don't know. I know that God is doing this, but how, I don't know what to do with it from there. So it's a really interesting chapter. He kind of, by the end of it, he's sort of reassuring himself and his friends that, no, I'm in the right here, but I don't really understand what's going on. And you would think, reading through Job, that at the end of Job, there's some great explanation provided to Job. God kind of pulls back the curtain and said, here's what I've been doing the whole time. And one of the real interesting things about the book of Job is Job never gets that satisfaction, not on this earth. He gets, restored, his life gets kind of back to where it was, but he never gets an explanation from God about why he went through all this. And that tells us a lot. It tells us that no matter who we are, God owes us nothing. One of the books we read, I talked about how God isn't a respecter of persons. God doesn't owe you an explanation. He doesn't have to justify his actions to you because his actions are just. And that's what we see in chapter 12, the first part. He's going to go on to talk about his own uprightness and kind of further his confusion in chapter 13. But chapter 12, Job is confirming, yes, this is God that's doing this, because I know who God is. I know that he has control over everything. So the only answer to who's causing this is God. Doesn't necessarily make the situation easier to understand, but he's confirming an important fact and reminding us that we need to confirm that important fact as we're going through life and as we're faced with struggles. As much as it's a temptation for us to protect God, God does not need our protection, and we do more damage to people's theology by trying to keep God away from the bad things that happen in life than if we just acknowledge this is all part of God's plan. Maybe we don't know how it's part of God's plan or what he's doing, and maybe we'll never find out. But this is part of God's plan because he's sovereign. And that's the message of Job chapter 12. God bless you all, and I welcome your comments. Bye.